All right. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to our information session on our teen group therapy. My name is Eduardo Rios. I am the CEO of the WillThrive Foundation, and we're excited to have you here tonight. We're excited to talk about this new program for our teens. This is being put together and through a partnership with WillThrive, the Vita Clinic, and the Seek Institute. Our foundation started last year and came about as a response to my son's death. He took his life, and he suffered from from anxiety and depression. And so my wife and I, decided that we really wanted to help others who struggled to find different teen services, teen mental health services here in our area. And so this is our first program. We're very blessed to get a grant from the Tomlin Family Foundation. That's what's enabling us to do this at no cost to the participants that are selected. So we're going to go into this program. We're excited about it, and we thank you for your attention. I'm going to turn this over to Laura Johnson. And the other thing is on our Zoom link, you can actually go in and ask any questions, and I'll be monitoring that, and we'll be able to provide some answers at the end. Otherwise, if you're on our Facebook page, you can email us at info@willthrive.org. So Laura, I'm turning it over to you.
Great. Thank you. So I'm Laura Johnson, and Dr. Miranda and I are therapists at Vita Clinic. And we really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk with you all. We just wanted to share some more information about Vita Clinic, also give you some details about the 12-week teen group therapy program. And also Dr. Miranda has some information about teen mental health, also how you can support them, and also care for yourself as a teen, a parent of a teen, especially during the world that we currently live in. So Vita Clinic is an agency that partners with organizations and individuals to provide a range of high quality mental health care that includes services for individuals, family, and group therapy. So prior to COVID, Vita Clinic was an agency that specialized in school-based mental health therapy. Our first pilot program was started almost 10 years ago, and we've been mostly providing services in the Austin area. And so since COVID, we have been working to transition our services to community mental health, which is really exciting. So our model that we've been working on that's been really effective for teens and children, we're now able to bring that to the wider community and also to expand to areas outside of Austin, including in San Marcos. And so we invite you to check out our website at vitaclinic.org, where you can find out more about our work. So why group therapy? So we have found that group therapy can be a very effective therapy for teens dealing with stress, anxiety, and depression. So developmentally, peers are extremely important to teens. So group can be a great way to receive positive support and connection from others, where teens can feel like they're not alone in their struggles, especially during COVID. Teens are dealing with feelings of isolation and loneliness. So this can be a way to get that positive connection that teens really need to thrive. And while feeling connected and feeling that strong sense of belonging can lead to a lot of healing, we're also able to provide them some really practical skills for managing stress, anxiety, and depression. So some of the skills that we commonly work on are managing mood and stress, coping with intense emotions, improving relationships, goal setting, and currently in the times that we're in, also coping with the pandemic. We found that group can really help to increase feelings of well-being, reduce anxiety and depression symptoms, and improve overall functioning like motivation and school success. Some of our first programs 10 years ago were in high schools. And so we've been doing teen groups to supplement our family and individual work as well for a while. And also since COVID, we've been able to try virtual groups as well. And that's been going pretty well. And so this group would be virtual with the hopes that someday when it's safe that we can also come to the community and provide face-to-face services. So as far as who is a good fit for group, this group is going to be for teens in high school, so 9th to 12th grade. So that would be ages 14 to 18. And it can really be a range of severity of anxiety and depression. And so this group could be appropriate for somebody dealing with severe anxiety and depression, or also someone who is just having difficulty adjusting to stressors. And so they might have some symptoms of depression or anxiety. So it's okay if it's a wide range. For some that it might not be appropriate for, that would be if like a higher level of care, specialty care is needed. And so some examples of this might be if there's severe suicidal ideation. So that would mean like having a plan and intent to complete suicide, or if there's violent behavior or severe drug and alcohol abuse could be some examples where maybe specialty care or higher level of care would be needed before a group like this one. Another time that might not be appropriate is if a member has difficulty keeping information confidential, shared by other members, or respecting other members, because it's just really important that everybody feels safe and respected in group. And then these are just some details for getting your team set up in group. And so the first step would be to complete the contact form that's found in the WillThrive website. And so that's really brief, and it's just some basic information. And then this gets sent over to Vita Clinic, and this allows us to be able to reach out to you and to schedule that first intake. And the intake is a comprehensive intake and assessment, and that would include at least one parent and then also the teen, and this would be with one of our Vita Clinic therapists. And this would be a chance for us to get some more background information, to assess overall mental health and well-being, and then to discuss diagnoses and any recommendations. And they usually last about an hour, but we would need to complete this before group starts. After this, then our group therapist, which would likely be Dr. Miranda, or it could be myself, we would be reaching out to you to try to set up like a short appointment with your teen, just to be able to meet them, tell them more about group, and also see what their goals are for group. And then they'd be ready for group. We don't have an official start date yet, but we're hoping in February to start this. We just need to complete the intakes before we start the full group. But we are thinking that most likely it will be after school hours, probably 5 o'clock. And we'll make sure and get those details out as soon as we have them. And I know this is a lot. So after you complete that contact form with WillThrive, we'll definitely walk you through all those steps. And like Mr. Rios said, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat and we'll answer those. And then tips for supporting your teen to try group or other mental health services. So often we get phone calls from parents that say that they're really interested in their teen receiving therapy, and they feel like they could benefit, but maybe their teen is nervous about it, or they're not sure if they would like it. So it's really hard for them to get them to engage in therapy. And so our recommendations are, first of all, just to empower your child, remind them that yes, it's voluntary, it's their choice, just to help them like they have a feeling of control. And then I would encourage them just to try it one time, just to attend the intake, see what it's like, meet the therapist, or if they're nervous about group, just trying out that first group and seeing what they think. And oftentimes, if we can just get them to do that first initial interaction, they're good and they want to engage, they want to feel better, they want to learn skills. It's just being able to see what it's all about. So if you can just get them to that first visit, that would be great. And then with group, we do want them to commit to going to all the groups, but I think it's fine, for them to try out that first group and then make a decision and then to commit to the rest of the groups, because that could be the difference between them trying it or not trying it at all. And then as far as additional Vita clinic services, so at the intake, the therapist might recommend that your child would also benefit from individual therapy, especially if there's more severe depression and anxiety. And that's definitely your choice. And so, like Mr. Rios was saying, the WillThrive 12-week group is at no cost to you. WillThrive is covering those costs. The intake is also covered by WillThrive. If you would like to do any additional services with Vita, then we would work with you to go through your insurance. And also after those 12 weeks of group, if you wanted to continue, we would work with your insurance as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, you might even know that today, maybe you talk to your child and you want to do individual and not group, you're welcome to email Vita Clinic. This is the email address at vitacare@vitaclinic.org. And you can let them know that you're interested in being set up with a therapist for individual therapy. And if you could please mention WillThrive Foundation in your email. We are currently not receiving outside referrals, but we are taking referrals from our partnerships. And so since WillThrive is a partner, we are able to take those referrals. So if you could please mention WillThrive if you're interested in that. And again, it's a choice. A lot of times group can be a great supplement to individual, or it can also just stand alone. And also, I think we've already had some families reach out that maybe your teen is already in individual therapy with an outside provider, not Vita Clinic. That's totally fine too. We'll work with you and see if you'd like to sign a consent, and we can collaborate with that therapist. But that is fine too. So I will pass it over to Dr. Miranda to talk more about teen mental health.
Great, thank you. So yeah, so we were hoping to go over some, kind of tips on, mental health, teen mental health, and parenting as well, right? Especially during the times that we're living in right now with the pandemic and everything going on in the world. So one of the things that I always like to tell folks is really, children and adolescents, really look to us to how we react to stressful events, to really and being that role model for our children and our teens on, being very regulated parents. And that's often the term we use when we want to say, really calm, reassuring presence. And oftentimes our children will model that as well. So, as parents, I think our main goal during any time of change really is to maintain that calm, really listen to our children and teens, validate and offer reassurance. So I really wanted to go through kind of what some of those things mean, but also other information and tips that might be useful to kind of dealing with change in general. And one of them is kind of evaluating expectations, right? So there is this notion, this idea that, children and adolescents, they really need to feel safe and regulated again, calm, in order to learn and prosper. And I'll show you that visual in the next slide of what that looks like. So with that said, we really have to consider how realistic are we being with kind of what we're expecting of our teens and of ourselves, especially during this time, because things have shifted so much. And so the key is, how are we going to adjust and manage our expectations, right? So the notion that, you held a very clean household every single day, pre-pandemic might not be the case post-pandemic. And so that is something that really needs to get adjusted, managed, saying, what can I do now, given that, probably some teens are home all the time, if you have multiple children, online learning. And so you need to be kind of on focus with them. And so we have to kind of consider what what is realistic? What do we need to adjust? How are we going to manage our expectations, and talk about them openly, so that in our minds we don't have those same maybe unrealistic expectations. And so this is just a very quick visual of, what that Maslow hierarchy of needs looks like. And so again, the notion is that we have basic needs that need to be met before we can go to a higher level of needs. So as you can see, kind of that biological and physiological needs need to be met before we can go and think about kind of our safety needs, and then our connections, and then our achievements, and then our also like this self-fulfillment. Right. So when we consider, a teen maybe not progressing as well in academics, we start to think, well, are there other needs below that need to be satisfied that we can work on in order to get to that academic level and progress there? So those are kind of the things that we often think about when dealing with children and teens, and what's going on around them in their environment. So there was this very neat project that asked students, high school students, what their concerns were during this time. Right. And so these were some of the common concerns that they laid out. Some of them, are kind of, you can consider them more generalized and kind of all-time concerns. But there are some that definitely are more due to this time that we're going through right now. So there's things like academics, right? Those grades, those test anxieties, college applications, definitely a source of stress for a lot of juniors going off and applying to colleges. General concerns about deadlines and time management. And then considering, that seems like a general concern, but then now kind of factor in the times we're living in right now, and how does that fall into place in terms of time management. Right before, if you were in school, you had a different version of time management than when you're in online learning, and how that would look. Sleep and hygiene, again, the same thing. When we talk about being on the computer all day for some, how that affects their daily routine, including their sleep. Are they just kind of continuing on with their screen time after school, and how does that affect their sleep, right? And then there's that awkwardness of virtual learning, which was a very big one for a lot of high schoolers. Is you are in class and you are just confronted with all your peers, like on the screen, all the time, plus yourself. So that anxiety of, yes, you have all these people looking at you, but you're also seeing yourself, and that's it has a lot of impacts for self-esteem on teens. And it's important to really talk openly about what that looks like for your teen. And things like self-worth, uh, which kind of goes into that virtual learning and awkwardness. But with all of that also is like these feelings of things being out of their control, right? And not really, you know, limited sense of what can I control within this environment that is constantly changing. Because we've worked in the schools, and we know, like, there've been like multiple openings of schools and reopenings and adjusting schedules, and so how are we able to really focus and say what is within our teens' control? How are they feeling? Are they feeling in control? What can we do to help them get a better sensation of feeling in control? The other one, which is very specific to the times, can be general, but a lot of them are feeling like it's specific to the time. It's all social anxiety and isolation, right? They're not getting that opportunity as much as to socialize with others, and so we know, we have the human tendency to connect and be in connection with others, and so this is a good a good opportunity, and why group would be very beneficial is because oftentimes, and I'm sure Laura can attest to this, but I myself, when I've talked to teens, like they really feel like they're alone in what they're going through. And so really being able to open up to others and witness that they are not alone is in itself so powerful for them to start that healing and that that process of healing. And then there's the balance, right? Balancing the school, relationships, work, and friendships. Those can be hard, especially during this time, in terms of how do you time manage, but also keep your connections. And if you're working, how does that look like and play into your daily life? So with all that comes, validating feelings. So what does that mean? Well, validate is really showing your team that they're important enough for you to listen to and to understand, right? So oftentimes, like if we don't make that effort to have them feel heard and understood, they may react in other ways, and sometimes those are negative ways, negative behaviors, or to really get the attention either of the parent or of someone else. And so through validating our teens, it can lead to less kind of emotional, intense reactions. But it really also can just lead to fruitful, better wavelength connections with others, right? Especially like as with parents and teens. And so validating doesn't necessarily mean you would agree with your teen, but it really is powerful to have them know that you're there, and that you're really trying to hear them out and what they're saying, and their concerns, and so it at the very least gets that communication started, and they're more open to talking about what they're feeling, with the support that they have at home. So, one of the things that we obviously need to look out for, one of the main reasons we're here is, being aware of teen mental health, right? So, the good news is that, most teens manage well with the support of parents and other family members. But we also know that some teens may have risk factors for increased reactions, including severe anxiety and depression. And we really want to, be with this group and this program, be that gatekeeper from getting to hopefully more severe reactions of anxiety and depression. And some of the risk factors that we often kind of look for, in that in families can really be aware of and self-aware of, is pre-existing mental health problems in the family. We know trauma history plays a very big impact, family instability, and loss in the family as well. Those are things that really will have more increased risk factors in mental health for teens, and across the board. So, you are the experts in your adolescents, right? You know them best. And so we definitely don't want to take that away. But we like to add that, oftentimes we should notice, we should be aware of significant changes in our teens' behaviors as a kind of a red flag, red alert. Right. And so since we know them really well, when they're behaving differently, or when we get that parental gut feeling, it's like, okay, what can I do? What do I need to do? What actions do I need to put in place? um, some of behaviors that we can look out for, not like just in combination. You don't want to kind of focus on one per se, but sleeping and eating disturbances is something to look out for. Kind of these behaviors or feelings of agitation, increase in conflicts with others, physical complaints, problematic behaviors, that could be stealing or lying, or poor concentration. Those are some behaviors that really, if they're being, if their changes being consistent, um, are definitely signs that uh, what's up, and how do we need to tackle these things? Who do I need to run this by and seek help by? And so with that also, I mean, obviously we want to be there for our children. We want to help them out, but we also need to focus on ourselves, and how we, again, if we go back to that beginning thought of, in order for us, in order for our teens to be regulated, we need to be regulated. So how can we start that process of implementing things in our life that will help us, especially during this time, to be more regulated so that we can be that positive role model for our teens, right? So definitely, setting aside time for rest and relaxation, especially during this time. I know a lot of folks, have been skipping that step. And so, I would really encourage everyone to put it back in there if you've skipped it, or if you haven't put it in, make it a note to really set some time for just your pure parental rest and relaxation. Self-compassion is immense, right? So we have to realize that during this time, things may not come out the way we expect them to or want them to. Things are constantly fluctuating. And so we just have to have a lot of self-compassion of, this is what it is. Let's try to, accept it the best we can, and know that the next hour will be a next hour. The next day will be a next day, and we have the opportunity to restart and reset. And so that's going to be very important. If you need to spend time in nature to really kind of smelling that fresh air, then do it. Go outside and really set that time to be at peace with nature. I would also suggest, kind of that talk of picking your battles, right? Kind of looking at the big picture of what, and it kind of goes in with that self-compassion as well. It's like, what do you have the energy for to right now? Right. And so what are you going to pick? What is a priority in this moment? Knowing that there's so much, kind of instability, what's best for the family, for you, for your teen. And with that, also be positive focused. It's so easy when changes are going on in our world to feel that stress. And so once we feel that stress, we also have more of a sometimes have more of a lens of spotlight of all the negative things that are going on. And that oftentimes creates like a really negative cycle of just focusing on the negative. And sometimes if we just take a break, be able to pause and say, okay, I'm being very negative focused right now. Let me try and shift that mentality to be more positive focused. That really can create really, really lasting positive effects in the family. So those are just some, kind of some brief self-care tips for all you parents who, are going through a lot, during these times. So don't forget about you. Yeah. Well, I think with that, let's head it back to Laura or Mr. Rios wants to.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Miranda. I really resonated with your spending time in nature, because of course Sunday we had a snowfall here in San Marcos, and that's unusual. My youngest daughter and I took a walk out when it was really coming down, and it was just a wonderful thing, and really put me in such a tranquil mood the rest of the day. It was just beautiful. So thank you for all that. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Vita Clinic and Seek Institute for this collaboration. Right now, because of COVID, this is all going to be telehealth. As Laura said, the goal is that, this is something that we continue to do beyond with additional programs. And eventually when we're post-pandemic, that we're able to get together and do group therapy in person. But we are excited to have this. We're looking forward to those of you who are interested. As far as questions, we got a few questions regarding where do you sign up, and you can go to our webpage, www.willthrive.org. There's, as Laura said, there's a basic contact form there. Once you put that in, they'll get the information and they'll reach out and schedule some time to have a deeper conversation. At this point, the age group that we're looking for is teens. So we're looking at high school students for this first program. We do want to expand this in the future, and we're looking forward to this program. So thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Miranda. Thank you, Laura. And thank you all on Facebook and on Zoom. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, and reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you all.